What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me here at the Real Rescue, powered by Vertical Helicast. This episode specifically is brought to us by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter, hoist, and winch provider. Now, coming up next in this part one episode, we get to talk to a guy who's a critical care flight paramedic. He's also an athlete, running marathons, Ironmans, and ultras. In addition to that, he's an author. He wrote the book Running Wild. It's all about him running a marathon on every continent in the world. It's amazing. So not only do we get rescue stories, we get running and his world adventure stories and why, a little bit of Boston Marathon bombing, and then everything else in between. It's a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I do. So please welcome Mr. Bobby O'Donnell. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real Rescue Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real Rescue Podcast. I am psyched with this because I got a fellow masshole with me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Go Sox. They're wicked awesome. Just saying.
Wicked good guy.
Did you see the Sox game last night? It was awesome. They hit a homer right over the monster. It was crazy.
Oh, it was wicked pissa.
Man, and then we were drinking the beers later, and it was just off the charts.
All night.
Oh, that's hilarious. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, he's a critical care paramedic working with Boston MedFlight. He's also an author. Please welcome Mr. Bobby O'Donnell. What's up, Bobby?
Jason, thanks for having me, man. You dragged that Boston accent out of my past. It just shook me.
What just happened? I don't know what just happened.
Oh man, years of trying to get rid of it. It's now brought back into the forefront of my mind.
I don't understand. I'm trying to sound smarter than I really am. Nah, you're wicked smart. It's totally fine.
I love it when you go into Boston though, and the trauma surgeons sound like that. And they're using all these crazy words with that accent. Sounds so misplaced.
Yeah, tip your head just a little bit. You're like, what did you just say?
You know, the residents are all screwed up because of it too. So.
Yeah, because anybody that goes into like any of the hospitals there, especially from out of town, they go in, they're like, "Oh yeah, what? What did you just say?" You know.
I mean, granted, like, you know, the Boston hospitals, maybe like 1% of them are actually from Massachusetts. We're lucky; we got docs from all over the world, you know. But
yeah. I think what makes it funny for me is when I go like travel down south, especially down in like deep Louisiana, and I start talking New England, and they're like, I don't know what you're saying. Then I look at them and be like, hey, boy, mama. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying.
You're like the guy in The Water Boy.
Oh, I freaking love it. Gosh, so funny. All right, so now that we've gone on a total tangent, Bobby, thanks so much for coming on, man. I'm excited to have you here. So this is going to be fun because you and I connected through a fellow instructor of ours. So you and I had the opportunity to go through.
Legend.
Yeah, NMETC. That was our paramedic school. Actually, shoot, I don't even remember what it actually stands for. I just remember do you remember what it stands for?
Yeah, it's National Medical Education and Training Center. Which is super long when you have to like write it all the way out on applications. So I got to bone to pick with Brad on that one.
That's what I remember. NMETC. So much easier.
That's it.
So Brad,
you could have just done like good paramedic school. It would have been way easier.
Yeah, right. Wicked. Jay should have put a wicked in front of it. It's a wicked good paramedic school. Oh my gosh. So the short version of it is Brad actually owns NMETC. He's one of the main lead instructors, and he runs people through an online paramedic school. And it sounds crazy that it's online, but it is legit. It is hard. There's some 90-something% pass rate. I think when you and I were there, it was 99% pass rate. Like it was
yeah, it was high.
Ridiculous. Yeah. So
it's a
shout out to
very
them.
good program. Yep.
I totally agree. And now you've moved on to critical care paramedic. You're a flight paramedic at that, and doing all sorts of other things, running, racing.
Staying busy, staying out of trouble. My dad always told me, you know. Yeah, that's right.
You stay busy, you stay out of trouble.
Oh, it's funny, man. You know, as a paramedic, like all you ever want to do is fly, and I've been flying for like 3 years now or so, and it's fun. Like I love it, and it's cool being in the helicopter. But I'll tell you, I love our ground days now. It's like you have more space. You can stop for lunch. You know, it's easy. It's easier to pee. Like we're not.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with all that. No, I'd rather be in the air, but I'll tell you, there is something said about having a little more room in the cabin.
Oh, it's nicer now. Like at MedFlight, we have the H-145s, which is great. I mean, not nearly as big as what you guys are using, but it's a nice HEMS helicopter. I was flying in a 407 in Haiti last week. That was cramped.
407, you can fit like one person down like the middle, and then you're squished off to the side of the door. You're like, yeah, I'm secure. I'm in.
Oh yeah, and it's in there. It's your nurse partner, a Haitian EMT translator, and a family member all in the back. So.
We feel like sardines in here. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, it's like 100 degrees out. The air conditioning sometimes works. You know, it's awesome.
Oh my gosh! In Haiti, how long were you down in Haiti?
I was actually only there for a week. It was partially what MedFlight could give me the time off to do, and partially because they were switching aviation vendors while I was there. So that with the FAA certificate, the last like 4 or 5 days I was supposed to be there, they weren't flying, so I ended up coming home.
Oh dang! All right, we're gonna have to circle back to that one. Like
we'll circle back.
Yeah, for sure. As a matter of fact, let's start from the beginning. Let's get a little background about Bobby, because you have an amazing story. You wrote a book. You've run a marathon on all 7 continents. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Even down in Antarctica.
It's true.
I didn't even know they had a marathon in Antarctica. What?
It's true, and it's a thing. People do it.
Oh, that's crazy. That's insane. Awesome, but all right, I like it. So how did all this start for you?
So it all started for me. Well, you want to talk about the running or how I got into what I do now?
Well, let's start with just you. Give me a little background about you.
With me? All right, so I'm a critical care flight paramedic with Boston MedFlight. I've been flying for 3 years. I was previously up at Dartmouth, and I've been a paramedic for 9 years and EMS for about 12. I live in New England. I love it. Wouldn't change it. It's just starting to get cold here. Snow's in the mountains, so it's starting to be my favorite time of year.
All right.
And I love my job. I think I'm one of the rare exceptions in modern humanity that I can say I love going to work every day.
Freaking right. Well, that's beautiful. Who doesn't love going to work? I love going to work, but I love what I do too, so that helps.
I'd say most people. It sucks when you're like shooting the shit with your friends and you're like, yeah, I gotta fucking work on Monday. I'm like, I would love if I was working Monday.
I know, that's when the most fun happens. Come on.
That's right.
Oh, that's great. Nice. So background a little bit more there. You born in New England, born and raised, worked all over New England. You've been up through New Hampshire, went to school up in New Hampshire. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nice. Yeah, I grew up in the South Shore of Massachusetts. And, my parents have the much more pronounced Boston accent than I do. But that's where it all started for me. My dad actually worked with Brad at Stoughton Fire Department. He was a captain down there for, 35 plus years and an ER nurse. And he was the one who really inspired me to get into EMS. And mostly because, listen to this, man, you'll love this. I was in 7th grade in science class. And it's like just when you're starting anatomy and physiology. And I remember sitting there watching this video, right? And this kid's riding his bicycle and he falls and it's in slow motion. It's really cinematic. And you see like his radius come through his skin, this, compound fracture. I passed out straight on the floor. Came to, the teacher's over me. There's 20 plus my classmates staring at me. It's like the worst thing as a 13-year-old boy going through puberty to have that happen. I'll tell you, it was terrible. It was awful. So from there, it's like blood, guts, not for me. I'm tapping out. I was getting excuse notes from my mom to like miss help. It was terrible, man. It's so embarrassing. But my dad was like, not my son. Absolutely no. He's like, you're coming to work with me, and we're gonna figure this out through exposure. So,
oh my God.
So that's what I did. I started going to work and riding the fire. My dad was a shift commander, so I'd get to, ride around in the command car with him and buzz around all these calls. And it was truly just exposing myself to this, where I got over it. And I was 15, so the only like certification type thing, I was too young to be an EMT, but you could do a lifeguard course. So that's what I did, because I just wanted to be involved and help out. And I got my first job at it sounds like badass, like a lifeguard, right? I worked at a Courtyard Marriott. The deep end was like 4 feet. I was yelling at people to take Pringles out of the pool. I wasn't doing anything crazy.
Oh my God. You know what? I think you should run with that. I think you should run exact opposite. Like, I had to go through the hardest lifeguard course ever for Marriott. You have no idea.
Right?
I almost drowned me twice.
Dude. It's funny now, because I do a lot of triathlon, right? So I got okay. So I do a lot of Ironman. But my fiance, I just got engaged this past year. She swam in college.
Congratulations! That's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's good and it's bad, because she's like, I've been doing Ironman for 7 years now.
I don't know if she'd agree with you with that. I'm gonna throw that out there.
No, she does. She's the most competitive person in the world. So we do that. We're gonna just continue to digress on this, man. It's gonna be a fun podcast. But so she did her first. She did her first Ironman in August in Mont Tremblant. We did it together, which I thought it would be so fun. And then she just kicked my ass, man. She's such an athlete. So I thought I was a good swimmer until I met her, and I'm just sucking wind the whole time now.
Oh man! Congratulations to her. I'm sorry you're second place.
Yep. No, it's good. I have to give her some props. She'll probably listen to this, and I don't want to look bad. So
that's okay. Just, you know what? It's good training right now. You will always be in second place.
That's a first place loser. That's what she likes to say.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I love my wife, and I'm always second to her. Just ask her.
As long as you know, right?
Yeah, of course. You know what? Right now, she's listening to this. She's just shaking her head right now. She's like, "Oh, that son of a."
She's at work. She makes more than me. I'm losing in every aspect, man.
That's me too, man. You and I are gonna get along great after this. Oh, you know what? Yeah. We can get together and drink our sorrows away with a beer in the bar downtown,
and they can pay for it.
Yeah.
This is awesome, man. No, but you know what's funny? So I had this Courtyard Marriott job. My mom loved it because she got the employee discount, right, for all this hotel stuff. I was just trying to exist through high school and do this, but I actually had a ResQ, not at work, but outside of work, and it's like by far the most significant thing I've done in medicine. Like nothing's come close in the past 12 years of EMS. But it's crazy.
So is this going to be your very first ResQ?
This would be, yeah. I was 15.
Okay, so I love this right now, because not only you and I talked a little bit offline, but this is how you got into search and rescue. This is how you what really burned the fires to get you going. And at 15 years old, you actually earned yourself a life-saving medal. It was a silver life-saving medal. You actually have a whole bunch. So in 2009, you earned yourself the Massachusetts House of Representatives Certificate for Heroism, Massachusetts Senate Certificate for Heroism, New Hampshire Bureau of EMS, EMS Heroism Award, and the Humane Society Commonwealth of Massachusetts Silver Medal in Life-Saving. Bro, this is awesome. What I have right here is I actually have the write-up. So I'd like to read what you did, and then I would love to get the backstory. And the fact that this is your first one ever, yeah, I can totally get it. So I'm excited to hear what the backstory is. So here it goes. July 16th, 2009, Meredith, New Hampshire. Bobby O'Donnell, 15, was spending the day with his 6 friends on Lake Winnipesaukee. The boys, all from Easton, Mass, were vacationing with Bobby's father at the O'Donnell summer home near the lake. 6 of the boys were playing frisbee in and out of the water. One specific toss of the frisbee landed about 30 to 40 feet out in the water. John Lee, 15, swam out to retrieve the frisbee. After several minutes, someone asked, "Where's the frisbee? Where's John?" The frisbee was spotted floating in the water, but John was nowhere to be seen. Bobby O'Donnell had just approached the other boys, heard the concern and questions, instructed someone to call 911 and call his father, and immediately swam out to the area of the frisbee. He then started diving, looking for John. On his second dive, he found John submerged in the lake bottom in approximately 10 feet of water. He pulled him to the surface and swam up to the shore. Upon reaching the shore, John was not breathing and had no pulse. He was blue and his body was limp. Bobby, who had taken CPR training, administered CPR. By the time Bobby's father arrived, and together Mr. O'Donnell, a member of the Staunton Fire Department, and Bobby continued taking turns with compressions and ventilations. They worked on John Lee for approximately 10 to 15 minutes when finally a pulse was found and respirations began. John then coughed up water and regained consciousness. The police and EMTs arrived after John was conscious and transported John to the Laconia Hospital, where he spent the night in the ICU. He was discharged the next morning, fully recovered. Holy cow, Bobby! Freaking 15 years old, man. What? Okay, run us through it, man. What happened?
It's crazy, man, because I'm now working in critical care, and we're doing a lot of cardiac arrests and stuff like that all the time. This is still the most successful I think I've been since that day. It's all gone downhill from there.
That's like that's terrible to hear.
Well, no, so this is the thing, and this is one of the points that I want to get into, maybe later on. But the reason that this rescue was successful was because it was one, it was witnessed, and two, it was early access to high quality chest compressions, which is we can do all the crazy medicine we want in the helicopter, but if they didn't get good CPR, early defibrillation, none of it matters. So. But we'll touch on that because everyone, it's a humanly duty should know CPR, man. I'm so passionate about that. And it started from this day. This day is why I am where I am now and why I work for Boston MedFlight. It was, we had gone up to my folks' place up on Lake Winnipesaukee. They still have that house. We were there, a couple weeks ago. Nice. And so this was, I'm 29, 14 years ago. And we're, joking around on the lake, teenage boys. And John actually grew up in Korea. He's my best friend. And he moved here when he was 11 years old. And it's not like growing up on the coast where you learn how to swim. And it's just, I don't even remember learning to swim. But he got so comfortable throughout the week swimming off the boat with a life jacket on that he had this kind of false sense of security about being able to go in the water. And what ended up happening was one of the kids was, they were joking around. And John threw the frisbee at him, and it overflew him into the water. And it was just one of those things, being a teenage boy, you threw it, you go get it. And John went out to get it and didn't have his life jacket on and got a big gulp of water. And that was the last thing he remembered. So one of the kids came up running. There's the parking area. It was up a short hill, maybe 100 meters away. And he came running. I was up there grabbing some sodas out of the car to bring back down. And my friend Kyle said, Bobby, John went in the water. He hasn't come back up. So I told him to call my dad, call 911. And it's one of those, it's kind of the first experience, when you're on calls and running stuff like that, you don't really think about it. You fall back to that training. And that's why it's so interesting that a basic CPR course or a basic lifeguard course, and maybe it's just a malleable brain at the age of 15, you take all that so seriously. And so it's just action mode from the beginning, and ran down, and I saw where the frisbee was, thought that would be a good place to start looking, swam out. And it seems like everything's going by in slow motion when you're doing this. In real time, it plays back so much faster, but I felt like it was taking forever to find. I remember going down that first time and looking for him. And, it was fortunate because the water temperature was so cold, which is what probably preserved his neurofunction. But it was also really murky. So you're looking around, and I had really no experience doing anything like this before. It's, trying to think about, what they do in the movies, right? So I'm searching and looking around, and then thought I saw something. I was running out of air, came back up, went back down, and kind of ended up right on top of him. And I remember his body just kind of laying there, and got under his arms and pushed my legs off the bottom and got him to the surface, swam him back, got him just out of the water. And he was pulseless, apneic, perioral cyanosis, and just started doing chest compressions, and got through, one round of compressions, one round of breaths. And then my dad showed up. But that was always the joke too when we went back to school, because it was our sophomore year of high school. And they were like, "Oh man, O'Donnell was making out with his best friend over the summer." It's like I didn't even had a girlfriend yet. John was my first kiss, man. You know how much that sucks? I tell him all the time.
That's really, I'm gonna say that's fucked up, man. You saved the kid's life and then they're picking on you for it. That's messed up, man. What?
It's terrible, but I'll tell you, man. After his career in healthcare, it's the first and only time I will ever do mouth to mouth. I can't believe that. That was the old way of doing stuff. Right? So me and my dad worked this code, and which is just another crazy experience. I have a very good relationship with my father, and it was such a retrospectively such an interesting thing to do together. But we worked him for, based on the call times and looking back at the records, for about 7 to 8 minutes. And I remember John just spitting up this huge bit of water, and just started coughing and breathing on his own and opening his eyes, and just thinking to myself, holy shit, I can't believe this works. Which is a really different experience than what a lot of other people's first time doing CPR is. Usually it's unsuccessful. Or it's really prolonged, and you hand off to EMS and whatever. But it worked. He spit up all that water, started talking to us. By the time the EMTs got there and got him on the stretcher, he spent one night in the hospital and left the next day we say fully neurologically intact. I'm like, you're just back to your baseline, man. I don't know if I call that full neuro.
Oh my gosh. Damn, man.
But after that happened, it was an addictive feeling, right? Being able to impact life in that way. I said, this is what I want to do. In some capacity, I want to work in emergency medicine. I'm not sure how that will play out, but I want to be able to do this and impact people's lives.
Wow. Just wow. Yeah, I gotta break this down a little bit, because this is blowing my mind right now. Like 15 years old. Can I even remember when I was 15 years old? Yeah, I think so. But I grew up on a lake in Massachusetts as well. So for us, it was swimming all the time. At 15 years old, I definitely didn't know CPR. So that's bonus for you there for sure. And I don't even know. I think I would have been calling for somebody like, hey, so my friend is underwater. We don't know where he is. Like, did you have a mask on? Did you have goggles or something? Or just going down?
No, nothing. Just going blind and blurry eyes. That was it.
Wow,
but what else are you gonna do?
Yeah,
your buddies out there. I have a vague idea of what's supposed to happen and what this is supposed to look like. You're sure as hell gonna give it a try.
Yeah. Did any of your other buddies come in with you?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, everyone, was trying to do their part, and I was fortunate that it's crazy how all these pieces line up with each other. It was, I passed out in science class. My dad brought me to work with him. I wanted to be able to get some sort of certification. I learned CPR, and literally 3-4 months later, this happened. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't take that class, I would have been in the same boat and had absolutely no idea what to do. I'm just calling for help.
Dude, that is incredible. Well done. Like, smart thinking right off the get-go. That's awesome. Damn, man.
One of the best things now, I talk to John pretty regularly, and he just had his first child in August, which is just super cool. So, it's just I was going to ask you that
too. Like, so he was your friend then. So obviously you're still friends now. So 14 years later, and he just had his first kid. Oh.
Yep, just had his first kid, so it's awesome, healthy baby girl, and everyone's doing well. It's awesome stuff.
So did he name her Bobby or what?
No, that would have been bad. That would have been so unfortunate for that child. I don't wish that.
I just you gotta ask, yeah. Bobby Sue, Bobby Joe, Bobby something. I mean, yeah, you saved the guy's life and all.
Crazy. On top of all this, it's just wild how all these dots connect. A few years when I was in college, 5 years later, I was speaking at this conference in Ohio for this nonprofit, and this after my talk, this woman reached out to me via Facebook, and because my talk is about overcoming fear and things in relation to the Boston Marathon bombing, but and not letting fear inhibit you from doing certain things. So this woman reaches out to me on Facebook, and I get off the plane and I going through my text and I see this message request, And it's this woman from Michigan who was at my talk but didn't want to get up and speak to me after. But her 15 or 14-year-old son the previous summer was at football camp on a lake and drowned and died. And now her and her husband have been, and it was their only child. And the crazy thing about it, Jason, is I don't talk about the John Lee story during my presentation. Like, it's not a normal part. So she had no idea that there was this other component in my life. So she reaches out to me saying that her and her husband really want to help and work on, throughout the state, providing water safety education and all this stuff. But there's so much grief that they're going through. And she kept thinking about how she views and how most people view drowning as this horrific, terrible death. And she can't help but to think how much her son suffered when he died. And I'm reading this message and I can't believe it, because when I talked to John about what it was like to drown, it's funny because we were teenagers, right? So he's joking around. He's like, it just felt like I got really high and then I fell asleep. He's like, it was a very peaceful. Wow. He's like, there's that initial panic. He's like, there's an initial, and this is an N size of 1, right? This is just John's experience. But he said there's the initial panic, right? Because you're drowning, and then your lungs fill up with water. And then he said it was just very calm and very peaceful. So I'm reading this message from this woman, and I said, look, you're not going to believe this. I said, here's my phone number. Can you give me a phone call? I said, I have a story to share with you. So I tell her this whole story about John. And I said, look, this might be helpful for you. I'll talk to John. Maybe I can connect you both so you can speak with him what it was like for his experience drowning, because he had a very different sensation of what we perceive drowning to be like. So I talked to John. He said, absolutely. They got on the phone and he was able to kind of comfort this woman that maybe her son didn't go through this traumatically, awful suffering during his last few breaths.
Oh my gosh, bro. You just gave me chills, man. That's incredible.
Every time I tell a story, it's just, you can't believe. I'm not an overly religious fellow, but there's certain things that just happen that you can't explain, and people get put in the right place at the right time. And you guys know at the Coast Guard, that happens all the time for you folks.
Can I get an amen? That's what I'll say to that. All right. Wow. Holy shit, dude. Like the thought of that connecting. At 15 years old, you save one of your best friends who's alive now and just had a child. Congratulations to him. Congratulations, John. I'm throwing that out there to you. So if you're listening right now, this is strictly for you. Congrats, man. That's awesome. You connect him with somebody with non-related, that you give somebody a peace of mind like that, like a closure. That's incredible. That's awesome. Wow.
You can't make it up. Like, some of these connections are just wild.
Dang, man.
One of the other crazy connections, I'm going to keep going. I don't want to derail us too much, but
no, that's so right, man. I'm digging it.
Right. So I was when you're asking for the write-up of that award, and it's funny because ever since you reached out, I've been listening to your podcast, which is awesome. It's so much fun. Nice. But I feel like the biggest imposter syndrome listening to some of these stories that these guys are telling. Like, I'm this critical care nerd, right? Like, I've been like just trying to lift more of my textbooks this week to maybe like live up to some of the other guys you have on.
Whatever.
So I'm trying to find the write-up from the Mass Life-Saving Society, Mass Life-Saving Awards, the Mass Humane Society. So I went on their website and they didn't have an email for me to reach out to. It's this really old organization. Like, they were incorporated in 1784 or something like that. And they were through all my reading, like, they were one of the predecessors to the Coast Guard. Like they were initially doing a lot of the coastal rescues in Massachusetts, which is really interesting.
So I've got it up right here. Let me zoom in real quick. It's actually, so yeah, prior to was the life-saving service. So it was the life-saving service prior to the U.S. Coast Guard when they combined them all.
Right.
I should have known that. Should have known my Coast Guard history.
Which was
my bad.
So that was pretty cool. And then I was on their website. I was looking at some of the stuff, and they do a lot of funding and philanthropy for hospitals and organizations in Massachusetts, and they do a lot with Brigham and Women's Hospital, and they do a lot with Boston MedFlight. And I had no idea. Like, they bought the first set of defibrillators for the helicopters. They equipped the first set of night vision goggles for Boston MedFlight.
Oh, wow.
So I finally had to call this lady to try to get this record from this write-up. And I'm talking to her, and it's crazy, but now I actually work for Boston MedFlight. And it was just that kind of a cool full circle moment. They're a great organization that does a lot for a lot of great groups. So it's amazing how things come full circle.
Dang, that's pretty cool, man. That is pretty cool. Well, good for you. Like, again, strong work. 15 years old. It's a weird spot to be because you're just learning life, and to be able to just go. Well done. Well done.
I think it made me grow up a little bit quicker. That's for sure. You get to see the balance of life and death at kind of an age like that. It definitely is impactful and set the tone for where you go moving forward.
Wow, dude, awesome, Bobby. Thanks for sharing, man. That's pretty sick, dude. Well done. I mean that. That's cool.
I hope. I don't know if you want like a lecture on like metabolic acidosis for the rest of this, or because that's like
maybe
my only real rescue. Your listeners are gonna be like, "What the hell? This guy sucks."
We can get into that a little later because then I'll get into it. It's metabolic acidosis. You gotta start breathing that shit off. Come on, man.
I was in ECMO class all morning, man. I just regurgitated.
Perfect. All right. Well, before we do that, you did quickly mention like you had kind of a weird, funny rescue when you were a Marriott lifeguard.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the best part. I had retired from my Marriott career at this point. I was just a casual guest. So my mom was already pissed off because we didn't get the discount at this Marriott. If you were to read off the award for this one, it was like we got my mom got her hotel reward points back because they felt bad, and I got a pair of flip flops, and they sent like a fruit basket to the room. So talk about top tier awards.
Wow.
No, we were. Awesome. It was actually. So it was while I was in paramedic school, and it was simultaneously my sophomore year of college at St. A's. And we went, my grandmother's a huge Red Sox fan. So for my spring break, me, my mom, and my grandmother went down to Fort Myers to go watch some of spring training. And I was training for the Boston Marathon, so I brought my running shoes with me. About 2 months away, and the first night that we're down at this hotel, it's the Sanibel Island Marriott, and it's right on the water. It's a really beautiful spot. And it was like 2 queen beds in the room, and we got one for my mom, one for my grandma. And then they got like a roller bed. And I said, this is cool as hell. It's just a nice balcony. I'm going to put this bed on the balcony. I'm going to sleep outside. And my mom is like the most nervous person in the world. It's crazy. Like I've put her through hell, like traveling the world the last like 7 years, and I love her. But she's like, you can't, you're going to fall off the balcony. I'm like, I'm not going to fall off the fucking balcony. So it's Mom. The middle of the night. It's this first night, right? Yeah. First night. And, I wake up in the middle of the night, and I swear to God, I thought I heard someone yelling help, and I'm looking out, and it's dark, and you can kind of hear the ocean, and I thought I heard it again, and my mom comes running, swings the balcony door because she heard it too, and she thought that I was falling off the balcony, and was yelling help. And so she think I'm saying, no, I said, Mom, I think someone's in trouble out there. I'm going to, I was in paramedic school, and I was, going to be the big hero for all this stuff. I'm like, I got to go help. So I go
conquering hero.
Yeah. And dude, I have an obnoxious name too, because I was named after my dad. So my mom loves to like yell it when she's upset, and she's Robert Gerard O'Donnell III. You do not get in that water. So I'm like, screw this, man. I gotta go see what's going on down here. So I go running out. You go through like the pool area, and then there's this little beach, and there's 2, docks that go out with some, super fancy boats on it. And there were a couple other people that had congregated, and I was like, you hear someone yelling help out there? And I said, yeah, we're hearing it. We don't know where it is. So you kind of now start to hear this splashing in the water, and you look out, and there's this guy who's just clinging to one of the posts on the dock. So you're running out, and the water level is like maybe like 5 feet below the dock. So you couldn't really reach him, and he was starting to go under the water, and he was in full clothes. It was kind of odd clinical picture trying to piece stuff together. It's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. So we kind of organized. I think we had like just done MCI stuff in paramedic school. And I must have looked like such an idiot, man. I was just like wimpy 20-year-old kid, and there's all these adults. I'm like, you're going to stay up here, and you're going to guide us from the top. you're a good swimmer. You're going to get in with me. We're going to get on each other side. Like doing all this stuff. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. I was like, like talking about stuff that I saw in movies. So whatever. So I get in with this girl and we jump in the water, and it's like the thing that you always see the drowning people, right? He's immediately trying to get on top of me. Like he detaches from the post. He's trying to push me underneath him. And I finally get underneath his arms. I'm starting to calm him down. And we had gotten like an inner tube from the pool area. So they had dropped that down to us, and we tried to get that around him, and I'm trying to calm him down. And one of the first things I noticed, which was crazy, is that there was a bunch of blood in the water. I'm like, this guy, you're trying to run through differentials. You're like, why is this 70-year-old man in the water at 3 o'clock in the morning? Why is there so much blood? Where is this blood coming from? So you're trying to do this trauma sweep on him. You're not in a dangerous spot, right? Like you're close to shore. You just need to work on getting him back and calming him down and keeping everyone else safe. I'm doing the sweep, and he's really incoherent. He had an altered mental status. Didn't get his head. Trying to work through all this stuff. So we're slowly kind of working our way back, and they had gotten like one of the pool cleaners, one of the poles. So they have that in there, and I'm holding on to it, and they're just kind of dragging us along, and the current is just kind of gently pushing us into the piers of the dock. And there's just like all this blood. Like, where's all this blood coming from? I'm not feeling any holes in the box. I don't see anything in his head. And I'm thinking to myself now, I'm like, geez, it's kind of like dark out. We're in Florida. It's warm water. It's all this blood. I'm like, you're gonna get like sharks and shit. And I'm saying to the guy, I'm like, why don't you like pull us in a little bit quicker? I'm like, so pull us in. So it ended up being what it was all my blood. And because what had happened was there were all these barnacles that were all over this thing. And I think it was just the adrenaline of the situation. I wasn't feeling it just like ripping my arms and back apart. And I was on the inside corner of this. So we just got to I'm just dripping blood everywhere. And it's just as like my mom is coming down, like she finally made her way down, and I'm just like all bloodied up. There's people everywhere. And so what had happened, she's so pissed. So what had happened was he lived next door and was a diabetic and had an issue with his insulin and got severely hypoglycemic and went out, like wandered out in the middle of the night and just fell into the water. And that's all that had happened. But so I have all these like open cuts with marine bacteria everywhere. We're trying to find this clinic. They put me on like marine bacteria is super bad. Like you can get sick from that. Yeah. So they put me on this like long course of Keflex and bandaged everything up. So now it's like day one in Florida. It's like 85 degrees. I'm just covered in Curlex on antibiotics. Can't go in the water. I can't. I'm trying to go do my long run for this training thing, and the bandages are just falling off. Like I probably looked like a druggie going through the streets. It was crazy, man. But Marriott was great. Got that nice fruit basket. I still have the cooler that they gave me. Nice memento. That's it. Those are my two water rescues. They're, one like very serious, one, could have been serious.
Dude, that's hilarious. I love it. Yeah. Well done. Another life saved.
Booyah! Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta switch it a little.
Like normally.
Wow, you know what? It's all good. It's fun because this is what I love about this stuff. It doesn't matter. It's like you saved two people's lives that were drowned, past tense, and then drowning. Like, well done. This nobody ever hears about this stuff. This is why I love hearing these stories. It's so much fun. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. That's hilarious. I'm glad your mom freaked out and was like, Bobby, Robert.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Man. Yeah.
So let me.
She still does, man.
Does she really? You know what? My mom does too.
Yeah, well, so we have 5 helicopters at MedFlight, so it's still like before every shift. She's like, can you? I don't want to bother you, but can you text me your tail number so I can track you on FlightAware? Like I'm 30 years old, Mom.
Yeah, all right. My mom's not quite that bad, but it'll be funny. So seeing your fiance is it's happening. You're going to get married. It's when your fiance uses your full name, then you've hit a new level. Because my wife, Jason Patrick, I'm like, oh shit, I'm really in trouble now.
Oh man, I haven't made it there yet. It's just like, hey asshole.
Yeah, stand by.
Yeah.
Not that I want to give her any ideas or anything, but just letting you know.
You're screwing me over, man. I thought we were on the same team.
Sorry. Can we edit that out? Can we cut that out? I'm just asking. Yeah. Oh my gosh. we're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Breeze Eastern. For over 80 years, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured battle-proven aerial rescue hoists, winches, and cargo hooks. Each product is carefully crafted to support demanding mission scenarios, ensuring the job gets done safely and efficiently. Visit them today at www.breeze-eastern.com.
All right, so let me tweak this a little bit, because one of the other really cool things about you is you were just talking about you were training for the Boston Marathon, and you mentioned it a little earlier. You ran the Boston Marathon, and the Boston Marathon bombing happened while you were running it. So
yeah, poor timing.
Holy shit! Wow, and that is actually what led you to write the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as well as run on all 7 continents, a marathon on all 7 continents.
Yeah, it's true. It ended up being long-term and expensive, bad experience for me.
Damn.
It's the Boston Marathon. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to back up. Like, I don't know how. Again, whatever details you want to give is up to you. So I had family members that were running in the Boston Marathon when it happened. They were not near the finish line when it went off. And I'm thankful, and I'm sorry for anybody that was at the finish line around that time when it went off. It was a terrible scene. But for you, where were you when it happened?
I was right before the turn on Hereford. So, I was a half mile away, but it's those last 2 turns. So it's right on Hereford, left on Boylston. So it's really like, couple hundred yards from the finish line. Damn. So my whole family was at the finish line. That was the worst part of all of it.
Holy cow.
Afterwards, because you just don't know, and all the chaos that ensued following that. You have no idea what's going on. And sorry, can we just back up a little bit? Because I just want to start that a little bit more cohesively.
Yeah.
I know we were speaking casually about that, or about the plan of how you wanted to go through talking about this, or.
No, we can. Let's back it up, because I'm intrigued. So, and
yeah, because this is like primarily what I usually talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hit it. Let's hit the ground running.
All right. So I was 19. I thought I was cursed, right? Because I was like, my best friend almost drowns at 15. I'm trying to go through high school. Now I'm running the Boston Marathon. There's a bombing going on. All this stuff just keeps following me around. I'm like a black cloud. I'm like, I just got to stay in the house and not go anywhere. But so I love though that, 10 years later, I can talk about the Boston Marathon and laugh a little bit, because it was the worst day of my life. It was the worst day of a lot of people's lives. And a lot of people had it so much worse than I ended up having it. And that's why when we talk about mental health too, that was one of the things that I struggled with, was in the aftermath. I said to myself, look, I'm still alive. All my limbs are attached to my body, and none of my family is dead. Why do I have any right to feel upset or stressed or anxious about any of this? And it's such an important concept in mental health, that your worst day is comparative only to you and to no one else. The scale stops, where your body ends. I can't say, well, Jason had all this shit going on, and so my stuff is minuscule compared to that, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to push it down because I don't have the right to. And that's so totally inaccurate, and that's a hard concept for people to reconcile with. But when the bombing happened, I was just around the corner from the finish line. But the worst part of it was my whole family was at the finish line, and very thankfully, my uncle works for John Hancock, and he had gotten them these seating passes so that they would be able to sit in the grandstands on the right side of Boylston Street. So if they didn't have that, they would have been standing exactly where the bombs went off. And my dad, because they have the tracking that goes along with it, so they got the 40K tracking alert. My dad had his cell phone out and was filming, because he knew that I'd be coming through at any second. And 8 seconds into his video, he has the bombs on camera. It was crazy.
Gosh.
I very thankfully screwed my hip up and slowed down. It possibly saved my life.
Wow.
So the after effects of that, though, so they had stopped, so I couldn't get through to the finish line. So the police were turning people away, and it was everyone was wondering what was happening, because you could hear, like, you were so close that you could hear the bombs, but you couldn't visually see them where I was. And you don't just stop the Boston Marathon. Like, it's this crazy, and like people are getting pissed off because they had no idea what was happening. It wasn't, the best way to describe it is like something out of a movie where however much time later, like my whole timeline of that day is such a blur, that doesn't make any sense. But all of these people they were coming back towards you from the finish line running and screaming. Like, it was like what you see in a zombie movie. You're in this urban environment with all these people stampeding through, and you have no idea what's going on. And finally I stopped someone and I asked her what was going on, and she looked up, and I'll never forget that look in her eyes. She said that bombs were exploding at the finish line. They had no idea that it was, just two isolated blasts. It was that these consecutive blasts going down Boylston Street, and bodies and limbs everywhere. And so I immediately when I tried to get to the finish line, because I wanted to get to my family. And when I couldn't do that, I said, all right, I need to get to, I didn't run with a cell phone. So I said, I need to find a cell phone so I can try to call my folks and make sure they're okay and figure out a rally point. So now the news crews that were at the finish line and having to egress from there were kind of making their way out towards us. And I stopped a news reporter and I asked if I could borrow her cell phone to call my mom. And I dialed her number, and it was just this automated message that said, your call can't be completed. So I said, all right. So I dialed my dad. It was the same thing. I dialed my grandma, the same thing. I dialed my high school girlfriend. It's the same thing. So to me, it wasn't the fact that, this was a tactful decision of, we need to shut down public cell service to clear channels for first responders, and we're worried about detonation of secondary devices from this. It was that their phones blew up and they don't work anymore.
Oh my God.
And I didn't know what to do, right? I'm 19 years old. I grew up on the South Shore, but I'm not that familiar with Boston. So I've just been running for 4 hours. I don't have anything on my person except my iPod. And what do you do, right? In that moment, it was every single person that I cared about in my life was dead. And I will say, one of the best things that makes me so proud to be a Bostonian is that it brought out the best parts of humanity in the city that day, because there's a fraction of people that run the Boston Marathon that are even from Massachusetts. They're from all over the world. And it's a point-to-point race. So in the morning, you have to get shuttled to the start line out in Hopkinton, and then your keys, your wallet, your cell phone, your hotel keys, all of that goes to the finish line, which now you don't have access to. So you have all of these people who are uninjured on the other side of things, right? Not even talking about the amount of resources that were required to get the injured to the hospitals. But you have all these people who have no familiarity with where they are. They have nothing on them. They can't even get to their hotel. They don't even know where it is. Just wandering around Boston, and they're just cold and tired and scared. And almost every single person that was home and in their apartment was opening their doors and bringing people into their house and giving them water, food. It was so, now looking back at it, it was just such a cool example of people taking care of people, which, like, in the world that we live in, where the news is so negative all the time, I honestly think that when given the opportunity, people are innately good and they're kind. And that's such a good example of it. So I just sat on this woman's steps for, I don't even know how long. I think when we look back at it, it was maybe an hour or 2 hours. And I was just, your world is just like blank. I remember my mind being blank. Just, where do you go? Where do you move forward? How do it's an overwhelming amount of sadness, and to the point where you just kind of start to shut down. And I don't know, I think it was just like a desperation or some sort of neuropreservation, where I asked her when she came back and asked if I needed anything, because I didn't want to go inside. I just wanted to sit on these steps and think. And I asked her if I could borrow her cell phone. And I texted my mom and I said, "Mom, it's Bobby. I love you." And she replied right away, because text messages were going through.
Oh.
So, right. So we made this plan. I met my mom and my family, and, we got out of Boston. And one of the most, like, where my heart dropped was when I finally, saw my family, far away from the finish line, and was hugging them, but I didn't see my dad. And I said, "Oh my God, what happened to Dad?" And my dad, I'm so proud of him. When the bombs went off, he jumped over the barricade and started treating people right away. He was one of the first people there on scene, and was, putting tourniquets on, and, wrapping belts around people and triaging. And he made a huge impact that day. And I'm, really proud to call him my dad, and everything that he's done, even beyond that.
Holy cow. Off the top of my head, I believe your dad actually spoke to our paramedic class about that, because there's some things that, as you're talking about it, I remember seeing pictures from the grandstand as everybody's cheering, and then all of a sudden, mad chaos.
Yeah, he's done some MCI lectures, I know, and I think he did a few for Brad, so that might have been that might be able to, now we can figure out the timeline though of when you were in school and when I was in school.
Yeah. But, it had to be. It's pretty
close.
It's pretty close.
It'll be after, but yeah, so it was this crazy thing, and the days and weeks following where I was 19 years old, and I lived a pretty, despite these weird water rescues and stuff, I had a pretty easy upbringing. Like, I was in a middle class family in suburban Massachusetts, and like I would argue that I did not face any adversity until this day. Like, that was my first viewpoint of the world, and it was terrifying to me, and I wasn't quite sure how to process those feelings and what I was going through, and so I kind of buried it because I was so worried about how I had put my family in that situation, because they wouldn't have been there if it wasn't, and they were struggling because they were right at the finish line and saw all these things, and they're not, bar my dad, not first responders, and had this, horrible exposures to so many people that day. We're fortunate that it doesn't happen as much in the United States as it does in other parts of the world. But it was a scary thing, and I was so focused on trying to make sure everyone else was okay, not in a heroic way, but just I felt like a dickhead, that not that I had any control over it, but they were there because of me. And so it went on for a long time where I didn't really process or think about some of the issues that I was dealing with, and why I couldn't sleep at night, or why I was, starting to become distant, and most importantly to me, why I couldn't run after that. Because as a college student, working my first EMS job and training, for these races, running was my stress relief, and exercise was how I didn't know it at the time, but that was how I would just mentally go throughout the, the small challenges of my day. If school was stressful, I'd go for a run, I'd feel better. But now I didn't have that anymore, because when I would go for a run, or I'd start to lace up my shoes, before I'd even start running, my heart rate would get all jacked up. I'd start sweating, and I remember like going back to college 2 weeks after the marathon bombing, and going for a run, and then calling, I was like 6 minutes into it, and called my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, is everything okay? I just want to make sure you're doing all right. And it was just this inexplicable thing where it was like, if I didn't know what was going on, if people were going to be okay. And it was a really debilitating thing. And I thought that what I needed to do was I needed to go back, and the same thing as the exposure to blood was, I needed to re-expose myself to that, and I needed to go back and finish the Boston Marathon the next year. And that's how I moved forward for that next year. And like, I wasn't particularly enjoying the training. I wasn't enjoying it. I ran cross country in college. I didn't run that sophomore season because I didn't like feeling constrained that I was going to have to run on certain days of the week. I was like, look, I think I need to just like take it slow and run when I feel comfortable to run. So I was trying to kind of doing my thing, plugging through it. And when it got to be April of 2014, this is, when I talk to college kids or high school students, there's a large amount of danger that revolves around having expectations on certain things. And I had this expectation that, look, my life sucks a little bit right now, but I'm going to run this race, and I'm going to be back to the old Bobby O'Donnell, and things are going to go back to normal. I just got to get through today. So I did. I ran the marathon in 2014, and the next night I woke up with a nightmare. And my family was dead, and there were bodies in the street, and it didn't fix a fucking thing. And
wow,
you feel so defeated after that. It's an awful feeling. And I finally, at that point, was like, look, maybe I should probably talk to someone about this, because this has been going on for a year. And the cure to what I thought the cure was going to be, that wasn't it. And I went to the health counselor at my college and said, look, hey, I think I need to talk to a mental health counselor. And she was great. I was glad that I did it and had that experience. However, that didn't fix anything either. And that's an even worse feeling. And that's something that people who struggle with mental health deal with very frequently, where mental health problems don't exist tangibly until you admit it. You're the only person who can initially make that diagnosis. It's not like if I went out, I was running this morning, if I break my ankle, that sucks. I'm going to go to the hospital. You're going to do some imaging. You're going to splint it, cast it. I'll do PT, and then 8 weeks I'll be back up and going. It doesn't work like that with mental health. The symptomology is not precise, and it varies on person to person. So I can't say, all right, yeah, I had this, shitty event happen to me, but I'm going to go to therapy for a little bit, and in 8 weeks I'm going to be good to go, ready to run, happy life again. And so once you project that out and you say that to someone else that, hey, I'm going through something, now it exists in the world, and it becomes much more real in that sense. And when it's a big leap to go talk to someone else about these problems. And then when you say, all right, I'm going to make the jump, I'm going to go do it, I'm going to talk to a counselor, and then that doesn't work, that really sucks. Because you're like, well, I took a big gamble on myself, finally, having the balls to go do this, and it didn't work. Now what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So, right. It's hard. And I'm not saying this to discount, obviously counseling works. I'd be a moron to say that it doesn't. And right. Everyone's going to be coming at me and all the emails. Everyone, I'm not saying don't go to counseling. Hang on. Yeah. No, it's great. And that's one of the things that's awesome. I can make a plug here actually at Boston MedFlight. We have a program called the Wing Team, and it is, peer support, mental health. And James Boomhauer is one of our paramedics who really started it and has an organization called Stay Fit for Duty, which is all about mental health for first responders. And we're so fortunate as an organization to have him kind of working with us and for all the stuff that we see and go through. But, taking care of the noggin is really important. But so the counseling didn't work for me on that first round. So I'm 20 years old. I'm like, how am I going to do this now? And I had an opportunity as a new paramedic to go on this mission trip to Nicaragua. And I had never left the country before. I'd only ever stayed in America. And I thought, the old me would never have done this. I had this very cookie cutter life where I knew exactly what I was going to do. I had my life more figured out then than I do right now, Jason. Like I had it to a T. And I said, I need to just change something drastically because I'm kind of going down a path that I don't want to be going down. And I went on this trip, and the beautiful west coast of Nicaragua and this really rural environment to this village. And I couldn't get over how amazing this place was and how beautiful it was. And I'd never heard of it before. And I very simply thought that I could see more of it if I was running than if I was just kind of walking around every day. And I wanted to maximize my experience there. And I hadn't run in a couple months. I'd just totally given it up. I'm like, I can't do it. It stresses me out too much. And problems were just compounding because I didn't have that outlet anymore. But I went for this run on this beach and then through the jungle. And at that point, I was running not because I was trying to complete a race or I wanted a specific time or to get a medal or for anyone else. I was doing it for me. And it was just this primitive sense of getting my heart rate elevated and sweating and being in this natural environment. And that's when everything clicked for me. I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to be out in the mountains, out in the jungle, wherever these crazy places are, that I can just experience the world and the good that's in it. It sounded cliche, right? But it's true. Like that's what I felt in that moment. Like I need to go, this is what I need to do. And I thought to myself, this is the first time I've ever traveled. The world's a big place. How am I going to kind of choose where to go next? So I set this goal that to see lots of different variety in geography, I would run a marathon on all 7 continents. And that's what I spent the next couple of years of my life doing.
Damn, man. That is awesome. Holy cow. Well done. A couple of years. How many years did it take?
Thanks. Yeah. I ran my first international marathon in Australia in 2015, and I finished in Nepal in 2017. It's about like 2.5, 3 years. But it was great because I was a parent. I finished my paramedic my junior year of college, and I was under the age of 26, so I could stay on my parents' health insurance. So I just worked as a medic per diem at like 3 different jobs, 100 hours a week, and I do that for 6 months, and then I'd go fuck off and travel for 6 months.
Oh my god!
And that's how I did it. Like I didn't have like a ton of money. It was just I'd work my ass off for all this time, and then when I was home, I would just sleep in my Toyota RAV4 or work night shift and take a shower at the gym.
Oh my gosh! Holy cow, Bobby, that's freaking awesome. I like your story about how you overcome it, and what it took to do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of things I want to actually talk about a little bit more, but the fact that you've not only overcome it, but you set such a high goal and then accomplished it, that's what I'm talking about. Well done.
Yes. Dude, and that's what I tell people, right? Is that it doesn't have to be running, right? I'm just a sicko, and that's like what worked for me. Like it could be anything. And I got an awesome letter recently I was speaking at a college, and I tell this kind of a similar story about kind of working through mental health and how important it is to start earlier on. Otherwise, it just gets harder. And even if counseling doesn't work, then you find what works for you. And this young girl sent me this letter about how she's been going through some stuff, and after she listened to my talk, she said, all right, I'm not a runner, but I need to find an outlet or find something to do. And she discovered painting, and now she's just painting all the time, and she's starting to get better. And it's a great example of like, it could be anything, but you need to find something therapeutic to work through your shit.
Totally. I 100% agree. I'm in the gym. I love going to the gym. It helps me. Recently I'm doing like cold plunges and stuff. I love that too, because anyway, that's another side subject. But yeah, no, I am with you, and everybody needs it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to throw a shout out to 2 people I've had on this podcast, and one of them from Ireland, Keith Carolyn. He's a huge component of mental health. And him and I have talked about it. We had a great conversation about it. And like you said earlier, like if you go to somebody and you're talking to them and it just doesn't work out and you don't feel good afterwards, well, maybe it's not so much them. Maybe you just didn't get the connection. And then my next one I'm going to throw in there is Sam Fielder from Australia. So he specifically went to like two people off the top of my head. And then the third guy that he went to, that's the dude that actually took time to say, I got you. Now, we're going to try this. We're going to try this. We're going to try this. And, Sam's up flying again. He's doing what he loves to do, and it's all finding the right person. So
absolutely.
I'm with you. So
absolutely. Yeah. But in that moment for people, it can be hard. So no, it's huge. It's reassuring to hear, other people having similar experiences, but when you're in that hole and you have that first one not work, it's important for people to hear and know that, maybe you just need to try someone different, or you need to try something else, and it's not a one-stop shop.
Right. Agreed. It's kind of funny. I was just talking to my daughter about some of this today. And just about me specifically, because it was like, had I taken the advice when I was 20 years old that I give people now, it would have made my life so much easier. Like we have a very unique job. We have a very unique, and your situation of the Boston bombing, like you're there. I get it. I get it. And when you have people that don't understand or can't relate, like how do you get help from somebody that can't relate to what you've seen or done? So it's that.
Absolutely.
Find somebody to talk to. Make a stupid joke that nobody gets, and then people look at you like, "Oh, you're insensitive." That person did this. They died. I know. And now I can't have a beer with them. That's terrible. Like, oh, it's funny, not funny. Okay. But it's how we have to deal with stuff. And go ahead, man. I'm taking it over this conversation. My bad.
No, it's good. It's all good stuff, man. And that's one of the things too, where it is just finding the right person. And I know, James Boomhauer, called Boomer, at MedFlight, when he was establishing the wing team, one of the things that he did was he looked at, all the therapists that are available for through the EAP program. Because, it's hard to, like you said, if people don't see what we're seeing going through that stuff, for some people, it's hard to be like, well, how can I talk to this guy who has no concept of the stuff that we do? So Boomer went through and called all of these people and was like, hey, what's your experience? Like, what are you typically through? And it's like there's some, I'll get the numbers wrong, but it was like some crazy number that were on the list, don't even practice anymore. And then there were maybe 3 people that actually had a military, police, or EMS background. He's like, all right, these are the people. If one of our guys gets jammed up, we're going to kind of push him in this direction. So it's a good resource, and it's good. I feel very fortunate at MedFlight. Everyone's really supportive of that, as all organizations should be.
Dude, right on, man. I like hearing that. That's definitely a bonus for people to have. just to be able to make that quick call. To back up to you specifically, getting into your running, like that wanting to run, the wanting to go out, did you get that after you were able to talk to somebody, or was that just kind of something that you worked through on your own as well as talking to somebody?
It was just something that I kind of got figured out on my own. I wish someone had just told me to go do it. It would have saved me a fair bit of time. But no, it's as like simple. And when I was writing my book, it was an interesting thing when I was kind of going through the chronology of how stuff happened, and because I had kept notes through all of it and journaled, and I find writing very therapeutic. And it was as simple as, I'm in this country. It looks beautiful. I can get more out of this day if I go further, and I'm going to get further by running. And as soon as I started doing it, the switch flipped. And it's interesting because in a lot of these stories or books, it's usually like a build up. And in a way, there was a build up to this, right? But it really was this one moment where I'm like, I know how I'm going to fix this.
Nice. How long did that take you to do? You said it was in 2014?
Yeah, so my first marathon abroad was a trail race in Australia in May of 2015. And then Asia was my last continent. And I ran the Everest Marathon in Nepal in December of 2017. Or November 2017.
So from the Boston
That's a great
Marathon.
Story, too. That was...
Well, hold on. Before we get into that, so from the Boston bombing that happened, you ran a year later. So the bombing was 14. You ran 15.
13.
No,
sorry. Bombing was in 13.
13.
I ran Boston again in 14. And then it was like a year and a month later that I ran the first marathon abroad.
So from really 14, right? So when you ran the Boston Marathon again, right? So now that another year and a half, you have to really, it's like 2.5 years trying to work through yourself. And you said it earlier, but I'm going to emphasize it again. Like, it's not a broken arm. Like, it's not, it doesn't take you, 6 weeks and it's healed, then you're good to go. It doesn't work like that. And I want to emphasize that as well. And I love the fact that you took it to, how can I do this on my own? And that is what triggered you to be like, got it. Dude, I like that, man.
It's good, man. And the other thing too is it's not, you don't just have this increase in trajectory of healing upward with mental health too. Like it's peaks and valleys. It's, your bones are progressively healing, or, whatever pathology you choose, right? I guess orthopedics is the best example, though. That was a shitty analogy. I'm thinking about all these like complex medical cases. I'm like, it's peaks and valleys all the time. What am I talking about? So an orthopedic injury is you generally heal in a positive upflexion. No, with mental health, you have good days, you have bad days, but as long as you're moving generally in the right direction, that's what counts. You got to celebrate small victories with that.
Totally, man. Thank you for sharing all that. All right, Everest, Nepal Marathon. Funny story.
So I go to Nepal for this, which is dumb, right? No one should run at altitude. That was really, it's shitty. Like, it's a bad thing.
You're supposed to acclimatize and stuff, man. Come on. What the?
So we did, right? To an extent.
We acclimatized.
Yeah.
I took a day.
So no, come on, man. So to run the race, right? You had to go. It's like 3 weeks or a month early, and you're out hiking every day, and you trekked up to base camp, and you're going all around some of the routes up there, and they're checking your pulse ox and your heart rate every night. And like, I'm a pretty healthy guy, and I was like sat in the high 80s, just sitting down at night having dinner. And there were other people like in the 70s. You're like, holy shit! You're like, that whole dissociation curve's a real thing, huh? But So I met some awesome people doing this. Some of like my best friends that I still talk to. Like because of this, I ended up living in Scotland for 2 years. Just a weird life, man. But so awesome. I became yeah, it was great. We're gonna get so far off topic. I worked in Scotland as a reindeer herder for 2 years because of this. I was just in the mountains working with I know. You're gonna be like,
way off rescue. That's all right.
Everyone's gonna be like, this guy's full of shit. So on topic. So, so I'm running on, so we go like 3 weeks early. I'm getting really close to all these people. And as it got closer to the race, you think about, I think there were maybe like 30 people in the race. And there was another group of, Nepalese people that were running who smoked everyone else, but we're like by hours. So, everyone's intense and they're eating together and it's all this stuff, and people start getting sick. And it's like a couple days before the race. And I'm thinking to myself, look, like I've spent all this time, it was a 3-year period, but it was a lot of work, right? I was traveling all over the world. I'm on my last continent. I'm 23, so I already have what it's going to look like on Instagram. When I finish this race, I was such a shithead back then, man. I'm like, I know exactly how I'm going to caption this and what the picture is going to look like. And I was like, nothing is going to get in the way. I'm going to finish this race. I've come too far. I got to do it. So that's why I like to say, like, this was 2017. I was social distancing way before it was cool. I should have patented that, man. I was isolating myself. I'm like, no one is getting near me. I'm eating meals by myself. I'm going to stay healthy. So, but all these people, like, it was this nasty. It was probably like a norovirus or something. I don't think it was like any like weird, native pathology or bacteria, but I think it was just like a norovirus. It was all the textbook people are just like diarrhea and vomiting everywhere. Like no one could keep anything down. And then it sucks too because you're at altitude, so you're already physiologically deficient. So I'm like one of my Irish buddies was just puking in his running shoes the night before the race. And it was like,
oh God,
it was carnage. So I wake up and the race started like just below, I think the starting altitude are like 17,000 feet, and you net run downhill for most of it. Like I think there's like 3,000 feet of a gain, but you end up at 12,000. It was something like that. But so it was like -4 degrees out. You're in your parka and you're getting ready to start, and I get going and everything feels good. I'm like, all right, we did it. Like all I have to do is get through the next 26 miles. And I'll be drinking beers, and I figured out how to remain healthy through all this. So I get to the halfway point, and I still am a huge Himalaya Everest nerd. And I said, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get back here again. And I want to do some climbing and do some high peaks. And it's so cool to be near Mount Everest. And the way that the route goes, this is like the last time that I'm going to get a good look at it before, the race continues. So I turned around, I'm looking at the mountain and kind of like self-reflecting, like, it's pretty cool that I was able to get here and do it. And from where this all started with the marathon bombing, kind of this nice little moment. And I was starting to get cold, and I saw this like cloud shadow coming over the mountain. And I said, shit, I should probably kind of keep going, because you're moving down to lower altitude. So, you're always moving towards a more safe area. So when I turned around, that cloud shadow didn't go away. It was, I still like saw it in my eyes. What the hell is going on with this? And I was starting to lose some of my vision in my eyes. Like,
oh my God.
I'm like, that's not good. So like, better keep going. So,
oh my gosh.
Such an idiot, man. So I kept running, and then and then the GI bug started to hit. I was shitting my pants, and I'm puking off the side of this cliff, and I'm like, oh God. Like, so my visual field is just continually decreasing, and I just like trip on this rock and take this header like down, like slide and like rip my tights up. I'm like, God, I'm in rough shape here. I still had 8 miles left. I'm like, I just gotta try to keep pushing. But your stomach, you're in any like, not even like this, but in even any long distance endurance event, it's hard to like kind of keep your GI motility and make yourself keep eating and drinking. But I could not keep anything down, and your caloric intake needs to be so much higher. You're getting dehydrated faster because of how cold it is and because of the altitude, and I can't put anything in my stomach. So I start getting to, I think I got to like mile 23 or so. I'm like, I just have to do a 5K. I'm like, I just have to, and I'm swerving, man. You would have thought I was shit-faced trying to make it through these trails. I couldn't see anything. I'm puking everywhere. And it's just like the opposite of my Instagram moment that I had figured out, right? So suddenly I'm like, I have to take a shit. Like all that my brain could think about, I'm like, I need to stop and take a shit right now. Like it is the most important thing in my life. And I'm trying to look for a place to go, and I'm on this path, and the path is like wiggling all over the place. I'm starting to hallucinate, right? So I see like bushes moving across the path in front of me, and I see this tree, and I go to lean on it. So I'm like, oh God. I'm trying to be so analytical about how I'm going to do this. I'm like, it's like in my current state, it's going to take a lot of effort to take a shit. It's like when you're like doing stuff in the winter and you're in Alpine and you're like very thoughtful and methodical about like what you open first and how you do stuff. So I'm like, all right, I need to do this first. And I'm like, I'm not making any sense, right? So I like pull my tights down. I go to lean on this tree, fall right over. There's no tree there. My brain made it up. So I'm just laying there on the ground, tights around my ankles, and I just fucking shit all over myself, right?
Oh
and
my God, that's terrible.
It was awful. It was awful. So I'm just laying there, and it's like starting to get cold. I feel so weak. I couldn't go. And the part that scared me was I was starting to get really tired. Like I was really starting to tire out. I was like starting to close my eyes a little bit, and it was literally, man, I just thought about how ashamed my dad would be if I died in a pile of my own shit with tights. Like my dad doesn't run, right? He's like, my fucking kid was wearing running tights and shit all over and he died. So I'm like, I gotta get up. I'm like, I gotta at least like put my pants back on if this is, lights out. So I get my tights on. And I start like doing the wobble. And these Irish guys who I became really, really good friends with throughout the week, I see them running along and they were behind me and they were kind of like looking at me and I said, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I didn't answer him. That's when they knew that I was pretty bitched up. And they came and they stopped, whatever, sacrificed, how fast ever their time was going to be, and got under my arms and started walking me and telling me jokes and kind of keep me awake and give me a hard time. And, the Irish are such good people, man. And they walked me through to the finish line, that last, 3 kilometers. And so I keep this picture on my nightstand because it's so important to me about what this whole journey meant and what this was all about, starting from the Boston Marathon, because it started out that I was having a really hard time struggling with mental health. And then I figured out how to fix it by running in weird, obscure places. And I thought it was all about the races and traveling around the world and doing the thing. And it wasn't really about that. Because what I talked about earlier was that bombing was really my first global view of how negative things are. And that's what captures people's attention is, this is happening over here. This is happening over there. There's all these terrible things happening because the media loves the negativity and it's headline grabbing, right? So running got me out the door and it got me on all these adventures. But when I crossed the finish line with these guys that I had known for like 3-4 weeks who sacrificed their day to carry, my shit covered tights across this finish line, it wasn't about the run. It was about all of these people that I met from all over the world, of all different cultures and religions and beliefs and ideas that I would have never have met if I didn't step out my front door to begin with. And they showed me that people will be kind when they're given the opportunity to do so. And it meant so much to me. And I'm like, there it is, man. That's what this is all about. And these Irish guys, man, I saw them when I lived in Scotland. I saw them all the time, but they're always coming over to America. We're going over there. We're going to a wedding together coming up soon. Like they're awesome. Some of my best friends. So it's huge. Love it.
Wow. Bobby, that's freaking awesome, man. It's kind of insane, but totally cool. And I dig it. I like it a lot.
All right.
I'm actually going to circle into like rescuing itself, because like what you just said is people are willing to go above and beyond to help those in need. That's what we do. That's the rescue community all the way around. And you've been doing it since really you were 15 years old. And like you said, I mean, people are letting people into their homes from the Boston bombing. And now you got 2 guys that you've met only for a couple weeks that are sacrificing their time to run you across the finish line of your last marathon in your last continent. Mm-hmm. Freaking sick, dude.
It's good. And it's I always try to tell these stories because it's important for people to hear. Like there's a lot of good in the world, man. There's a lot of good. And sometimes you just have to work a little bit harder to find it. You got to seek it out.
Dude, I agree with you. Heck yeah. Bobby, this has been awesome, man. Thank you for sharing this. All right, Bobby. So Man, I'll tell you what, Bobby. I got one question, and just kind of listen to this. I love the Nepal story. That's amazing. All 7 continents, marathons in every one of them. Do you have a favorite place you ran a marathon?
Yeah. It's funny. No one ever asked me that.
Oh, well, that's weird. Well, I'm happy to be the first guy to do that.
I'm joking, man. Come on, that's a softball.
Jeez, so, man.
No.
All right, you know what? No, screw that. I'm changing. What's the worst marathon you remember? What's the one you're like, hell no, I'm never doing that one again? All right, let's go to that one.
That's a first. No one's asked me that one.
All right, let's start with that one then.
Worst one, and I apologize to anyone from Connecticut who takes offense to this. There's this race in this ultra marathon in Connecticut called the Trap Rock 50K. And it's just an awful race. It's not like, usually when races are hard, you're usually getting some bang for your buck. Like, especially like running long races in the whites up here. Like, they're hard. It's hard. The
whites would be the White Mountains up in New England. Gotta throw
the White Mountains. Yeah. So that's my local lingo. Man.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
The White Mountains in New Hampshire, stunningly beautiful, right? But you're working hard up there, but you got beautiful views, right? You end up on awesome ridgelines, stuff like that. But you're working like just as hard at this race in Connecticut, and you're just in the trees. Like you're maybe like your biggest climb is like 400 feet, but you're doing that like 1,000 times, and you're just tripping over roots, and it's in the springtime, and I don't think anyone was having fun. And you're just like, it was just a mess. Like, it was terrible. Every year when I get the like hey, registration opens soon, I always go. I just got it the other day. And they're like, there's like a Cyber Monday deal, and I'm like, who the fuck would do this? Maybe I'll sign you up for it.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah, great.
But, yeah. I'm like, I will never unsubscribe from that email list because it will always remind me that things can be worse.
You know, there's people that are actually going to find that just to see if it's literally the worst run that they could ever do.
I know. I'm sure there's a word. I don't know. This is probably going to get back to their race director, and he's going to get back and he's go, what the hell, man?
What are you doing?
Like, why are you picking on this obscure race in Connecticut? Jason Quinn asked me this question and put me on the spot.
God, that Quinn, what a dick. Oh, it's funny. All right, now let's go to the grades. What's your favorite?
This awesome 50-miler in Patagonia in Chile, and it was just the whole race from start to finish, and it was a point-to-point, like a lot of ultras are like loops or out and backs. It was just a point-to-point 50 miles of the most epic, amazing terrain and scenery. Like, it was just so cool, and there were like people from all over the world doing that, so you're mixing it up with all sorts of cool people. And I did it with one of my friends from college too, and it was just an awesome race. I had a great time there. That's one of the few places that like I always try, like we're pretty limited with the time that you get on this planet, so you're always trying to go to new places. I've been to Patagonia twice now, and I would just keep going back. It's so epic.
Love it. All right, so you have your best and your worst both recorded here. Just throwing that out there. We got it. Boom.
There you go. I know. I'm sorry to the poor man in Connecticut. I don't. Do your own research. Maybe you'll like it. I don't know. But I thought it sucked, man. It's terrible.
I appreciate the honesty. All right. Maybe, you know what? Maybe they can hang little banners along the trail, make it a little more interesting, or put mirrors along the trail so you're looking at yourself. You're like, oh, I look like shit right now.
Dude, but I'll tell you what. I love when people like embrace stuff like that. Like I just did an ultra in New Boston, New Hampshire a couple weeks ago. It's called the Hamster Wheel, and it's called that because it's a 4-mile loop that you just do as many times as you can. And like there's a 6-hour, a 12-hour, a 24-hour, and a 30-hour. And it's called, their slogan is the dumbest race in New Hampshire. And it was all like I had a blast. Like it was fun, you know. But I'm sure a lot of maybe people from Connecticut be like, that fucking stupid hamster wheel race. I don't know. Ultra running's just stupid, man. I don't know why people do it. I don't know why I do it.
Yeah.
I'm doing my first 100-miler next year.
Oh, you are? Hey, good for you.
Yeah. Whew, man.
Good luck.
I was talking to my fiance about it the other day. I'm like, I don't know why like this dichotomy of numbers had me hung up, but I was like, you get to 70 miles, you still have another 30. to do. That's fucked up.
It's so far. Like, it's a long way. It's 30 miles more. 100 miles total.
It's gonna be a long day, but I got a good support crew, a good team, so it'll be fun.
All right. You know what? I'll high five you at the start line, and then I'll call you later.
Okay. Sounds good, man.
Because I know I'll see you at the start. Yeah, you know what? I know I'll see you at the start line. Finish line, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bullshit. You're gonna be there. You know what? I'll be there. Okay.
See you there. You can be the beer guy.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a Sam's Adams.
Sam Adams, buddy.
Yeah, we'll grab one of those. Oh, that's funny. All right, so one
of their IPAs now, man. Wicked Hazy. They're one of the new Sam Adams IPAs, Wicked Hazy.
Oh yeah.
It's cool. They're really cheap. They're like $16 at Fenway. It's awesome.
Yeah, wicked cheap.
Wicked cheap.
Oh my gosh.
You might actually lose listeners from this podcast, man.
There's a possibility. There is always that possibility. You know, if they're still here with us, then they're going to enjoy the next part of the stories, because I'm going to ask about it. Seeing we talked about it earlier. Haiti. You went to Haiti. Well, it seems to be that time, because we've hit our bingo. We'll be relaunching for part 2 of this episode after we refuel. We'll see you soon. Go. Now, it's time for me to pull chocks and take off. But before I go, I'm always looking for the memorable rescues that people have done. If you have one that you're willing to share, or know somebody who has a story, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to highlight it here at The Real Rescue. For everybody that is standing by for that SAR alarm, remember, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. So until next time, fly safe and swim hard. Thank you for joining me today here at the Real Rescue Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode.
Breeze Eastern. For over 80 years, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured battle-proven aerial rescue hoists, winches, and cargo hooks. Each product is carefully crafted to support demanding mission scenarios, ensuring the job gets done safely and efficiently. Visit them today at www.breeze-eastern.com.
My name's Rotablade. They call me Rota for short. And I have a rescue story for you. So let me just lay here, enjoy this for a minute, and then I'll tell you all about it. Oh, yeah.